Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and I'm joined by Brian Smith. And before we get started, Brian, I am going to read this real quick. I can't find it. There it is. LinkedIn is the college recruiting sponsor across the Locked On Podcast Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. So, Brian Smith, as I said, I hope you're doing all right. You doing all right, man?
Doing good. Getting ready to go to Battle Miami, the first 7-on-7 tournament of the year. Most important one of the year. Prospects from across the country. A couple of Mississippi teams will be down there as well. So looking forward to it.
Do you turnpike down there or do you 95 down there?
I'm on the coast right now. So I'm just going to take 95. So I would normally go the other way. I hate 95, but I'm already on the coast. So it is what it is.
Yeah. It's one of those situations like it's going to cost me $20 to get down there, but I don't care.
Yeah, 95 is not the friendly. I'm going to get up really early in the morning, and I'm leaving Vero Beach, so I missed the traffic because I got to go right into the heart of Fort Lauderdale. That is not a friendly area at all. So
yeah, this is beginning basically the kickoff area of the 2025 recruiting class.
Yes,
and one of the players that will be in Oxford, Mississippi this weekend is Montrez Walker, the linebacker out of Beaufort, Georgia. Can you tell the people what type of player Montrez is? I know that everybody's going to be recruiting him. Just kind of like set up his recruitment for the future.
Yeah, sure. Wherever he wants to go, pretty much. Inside linebacker, plays downhill, probably better in the box, but he can run sideline to sideline. He can cover. And coming from Beaufort, as you well know, Stephen, this is a kid that's been coached. That's not a normal high school staff. They got multiple fields for practice, et cetera. That's like a college. And he's going to be a young man that has an expectation to SEC or otherwise to play pretty much from day one in some capacity. 215, 220, can really move in space. So, yeah, he's a little bit of everything, and that's why he's got the Georgias, Ole Miss, everybody's after him.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I was about to ask the question, is this just a Georgia situation? It feels like they get whoever they want.
Well, it's unique because if you really look at UGA, they don't take a lot of kids locally. They only sign like 5 to 8 kids in the state of Georgia each year. They kind of just copied what Nick did and take like 1 or 2 kids from every state. That's kind of their national brand now. So you could make the argument that they need to do a little better at Beaufort. That's a school that's maybe an hour and 15 minutes from Athens, but Kirby kind of does what he wants, and that state is loaded, and he's got a national brand. So I don't necessarily think so. I know Miami was one of the schools that was really looking hard at him, and several others. I'm not sure if there's a prohibitive favorite, although you'll hear different rumors because he just has so many offers. The kid's probably overwhelmed, and good for him.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, Beaufort was the high school that was Dylan Raiola that decommitted from Georgia, right?
That is correct.
So
that school had a bunch of kids last year. They got one. They only got one kid out of there last year. All the kids they offered.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. But hey, we'll see how it goes. I know that Michigan has offered Walker. Like you said, everybody that's anybody is going to offer this kid, but he's going to be at junior day in Oxford, Mississippi, and that does not mean nothing, even this early in the process.
Oh, absolutely. If you don't get him on campus early in your Ole Miss, you've got zero shot. Zero. You know what I mean? Because like he's been committed to Michigan, if I remember correctly, Georgia, Miami, all these schools are after him. You need multiple unofficial visits, and then, I don't know which game it'll be, but I'm sure Lane will try to get him back for a visit in the fall for one of those great home games that Ole Miss is famous for. That's how you seal the deal.
Yeah, I feel like the Georgia game, that has the potential to be the game of the year in the SEC next year. Yeah, and yeah, I have a feeling that's going to be a rather large recruiting weekend at Ole Miss.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be 40 players or more that are on campus. And why wouldn't there be? If you're a recruit, why would you not want to go see Georgia and Ole Miss? That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and if you look at the 2023 class, the one that we just got finished with, the 2024 class, I should say, Ole Miss did really well at the high school ranks on the defensive line. Kamarion Franklin, Jeffrey Rush, William Eccles, those players. But overall, it was a top 20 class, not a top 10 class, which it necessitates Lane Kiffin to be really active in the transfer portal. And what we're seeing for Lane Kiffin right now is a historic run in the transfer portal with players all over the field that, like, just this week, Ole Miss committed 2 offensive guards from the University of Washington. That's 40% of the Joe Moore offensive line of the year is transferring to Ole Miss. That is the work that Lane is putting in. What do you think about the strategy that Ole Miss is doing, and how do you think it'll work?
I think it's probably the best plan, especially short term. They're not going to get the number one guy at any given position that necessarily Kirby wants, although they got a few of them, like Kamarion Franklin could have went to any school he wanted. Jeffrey Rush probably as well. If you supplement right with the portal, obviously there's more experience going that way. You not only maximize your chances short term, you also kind of seal it up for kids in the future because you're going to win more in the short term and kids want to play for a winner. They can help themselves through the transfer portal do better in recruiting down the road with high school kids. So I think it's a double sword and a victory on both sides of it. Kiffin, I mean, how many are they up to? 20 what? How many guys they got from the portal, Stephen? It's a crazy number.
17,
but if you look at the list, it's okay, yeah, it's right around that. And you look at the list and you go through and you go, okay, which ones of these guys do I think are truly reaches? Like you just brought up offensive linemen in the portal. It's a small number, man. That people really. I spoke to an elite O-line coach recently, and I was asking about the portal, and this is right before it opened at the end of the high school season. He's like, man, there's nobody in there yet. Let's see when it officially opens and all that. And I've talked to a few other people. There haven't been many. Getting the 2 kids from Washington, yeah, they were just in the national title game. It's a really good O-line. They have experience playing against Oregon, USC, UCLA. I think that's a valuable thing. How many teams got 2 of those kind of players at the same school? And those 2 kids obviously know each other playing for the Dogs. That's a really big get. And then defensively, they got some key parts. And offensively, too, it's balanced. I don't know if you can go against what he did. And it may not work for every school, but when you combine the portal and the high school ranks, there probably aren't 5 schools in the country that it did better to improve their roster than what Ole Miss did from last season to right now.
Yeah, it's amazing. And if you look at all the hype going into Ole Miss football into 2024, you see them as high as like 3rd in the country, as low as 7th or 8th. I mean, it's a consensus pretty much top 10 team at the moment going into the 2024 season. How do you think the season is going to play out for them?
If they don't win at least 10 regular season games, that's the first measuring stick for me. I think it would be a disappointment. You know, barring a major injury, Jackson Dart has a high ankle sprain and misses 5 games or something. Outside of something like that, I mean, seriously, you've got Georgia at home. If you're ever going to beat them, this has to be the year. I mean, I'm not sure what that'll end up being. LSU is a tough game, but you got to win those kind of games now. This is your best chance. Experienced quarterback, great portal guys, key players coming back that skill spots that Lane is famous for making go at a high level. And you got offensive linemen that are better and more experienced than you've probably had since Lane's been in Oxford. So with the defensive talent they've accumulated, and some of these freshmen will be in the rotation like Jeffrey Rush. There's no reason they shouldn't win at least 10 games and be in the playoff. If things go just right, 11-1 or 12-0 is not out of the question. And I'm sure a lot of people that are national, that aren't from the South, are going to say, oh, it's Ole Miss, blah, blah, blah. This is not a typical Ole Miss roster to me. I think they're going to have a little more depth, and I know they lost a certain running back, but this is a deeper team than what people know. And again, they're going to be more experienced at key spots, man. The linemen and the quarterback, those are the areas first that I look at, and they're good. And I already know they have plenty of skill talent, and they just added more in the portal. So they should be a top 10 team, absolutely.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Brian Smith, the Florida football scout, joining us. Thank you so much, Brian.